20 athletes will kick us off on the men's side of the Meridian Regional. And again, we can always find somebody that can sneak up on us here that could take away the first 100 points of the weekend, as there's always going to be those endurance people that just show up here in this first one.
And you just never know who it is, because we've also got some experienced names out here like Jonas Müller who've been here before. You never know what they're going to bring.
If you're looking for a possible sleeper pick, look for Mohamed El-Omda in lane number 17, somebody with a listed 5K time of 17 minutes.
That will serve him well right here.
And away we go. The weekend underway for our individual athletes, starting with men's heat number 1 of triple threes. It starts with 3,000 meters on the rower.
It does, and this is one of these things where we have a 49-minute time cap. You may not need all 49 minutes. A lot of these guys are going to go really, really fast, but what they need to do is they need to kind of find their pace. I'd like to see them just pace the row, making sure that they're not too fatigued is the wrong word, but that they haven't kind of blown themselves out before they get to the double unders, so that they can go consistently but fast through the double unders, staying in their lane, making sure they don't pivot, because they are going to be really, really close. And we heard yesterday when they were going through the rules with the judges that, you know, as soon as you start pivoting, your judge is going to tell you to come back again. Then after that, on the run, you need to go out there and you need to stay within your own lane. You can't spend too much time thinking about where everybody else is at, but more than anything, you need to be proficient on the assault runner. So it's not enough to be a good runner, you need to be good on the assault runner as well.
Seeing a lot of comfort on the rower, especially very early on. We're used to seeing that type of comfort on the rower in this event, but we were seeing a lot of people, you know, taking some time adjusting the foot straps, a little bit of changing the damper setting, getting settled in here in the early stages on this row, as nobody with any urgency. And that's something different than what we saw in Heat 1, where we saw some people move up a little bit quicker than they possibly wanted to.
Well, to be honest with you, I wouldn't go out there and start being really, really slow and taking too much time on the feet either, because it may feel like a long event, but there are so many places where you can make up time, but they're almost at the same time you can lose time there as well. And you want to get in there and you want to get after it. You want to get into that pace that you've been talking to your coach about, the pace that you had when you tried it and got your best result. And that's never the one where you took it easy to start with, had a bit of a rest or a breather getting into it. That's not it. So I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't recommend it. Get in, get settled, stick with your guns. Now we're seeing a couple of different techniques here on the rower, and you're seeing some athletes that are going to keep their hands going all the time, constant movement. You're seeing others just kind of finish the pull, take a breather, and come back in again. Now there are a lot of different techniques, and if you're sitting at home and you're watching this, you're going, oh, this is right, this is wrong. Not necessarily. Obviously there is better or worse rowing technique. More than anything, what's important is that you settle into a technique that you feel comfortable with, the one that you've used in your box at home, where you know exactly how you're going to feel once you get out of that rower. So I really wouldn't spend too much time thinking right or wrong. I'd be looking more at the athletes, just how they pace themselves. Are they overexerting themselves? And does it look like this was a part of the plan to start with? So this is probably not going to be a time that I'm going to throw out as we look at a monitor and we're seeing one of our athletes with a minute 50 pace just about for every 500 meters. But say that somebody averages 2 minutes for every 500 meters. So you're looking at that point, a 12-minute 3,000 meter row. And say that's their PR. What kind of pacing would you look at for the 3K at the start of this event? So if I had a 12-minute personal best for a 3K row, I would probably try to add another 20 to 25 seconds to that, because that'd be a comfortable pace. I don't think any of these guys out here, though, are going to be in that realm. I think we're going to see people get off the rower at around 10.5 to 11 minutes. I think that's a fair pace. I know a lot of these athletes, we've seen them in other competitions where they have typically done a 5K row with a split around 150. So the 3K row is not going to be a problem for them. But it's the adrenaline of getting out here. A lot of these guys are new to this circuit, to regionals as well. And so you get out and you want to do well. And you know, you've got a lot of adrenaline. You're not really thinking straight. Next thing you're looking at the display and you're going, oh my God, 1,500 meters in and I went way too fast. What's that going to do to my double unders? Now, I like to see that. Slow, consistent pace. He's not overexerting himself. That looks good right there.
So here's a look at what we're having on the monitor. Now the athletes did get to choose what setting they could have the monitor on. They have a few different options there. Obviously the distance has to still be showing, so the judge knows and they know when they're through 3,000 meters. But what are we looking at on this monitor?
So what we're seeing right now is that he's got a 151 split for 500 meters. But you can also see at the top of the right screen, or the right side of the display, he's got 26 strokes per minute. What that means is he's probably taken the damper and thrown it down pretty far, so it's a pretty easy, and he can maintain that high stroke rate. If you go a little bit faster, or if you go with a little bit more resistance on the damper, you can lower the stroke rate a bit, but it's also going to be a harder pull to start with. Wouldn't necessarily recommend this, considering that you're going onto the double unders. You want to be fluent. So this is basically just a way to open up and make sure you set yourself up for success further on.
This is the monitor for Stefano Di Francesco, CrossFit Soul Nest, as he passes or nears the halfway point. That monitor counting down from 3,000 meters. So he's now into the back half of this, on pace for about 11:10 through this 3,000 meter row.
And I mean, it looks really good. He's keeping a 150 to 140, 148 to 150 kind of pace-ish. And this is exactly what we talked about earlier there. I've seen some of these guys in 5K rows, and they'll do him around 150 splits fairly effortlessly. So he's not overexerting himself at all.
And just to clarify, 11:10 the projected finish. That because it takes about 10 seconds to get from the start mat to the rower, get started. Obviously the monitor there, if you notice that number on the bottom saying 10:59. That just once he got started on the rower. So we're about halfway, if not past that, maybe working towards about 1,250 meters left. Is there any kind of Sam Lubin at a Nexo CrossFit having a little bit of fun with the camera as we start getting near the end of this. What do you do pacing wise? Do you alter your pace when you get near the end? Do you pick up the pace? Do you slow down? Where do you go from there?
So I would recommend that these athletes hold on to the same pace all the way. Considering that it is a conservative pace to start with, you don't necessarily have to take it easy when you're getting off to get ready for the double unders. Just hold on to what you've got to start with. On the reverse side of that, you don't want to finish off with a sprint either, because it's not necessarily going to give you that much. There's just so much to do after you're done with that in the event. We're nowhere near done. So as Sam Briggs said in week 1, you don't win it on the row and the double unders, but you can lose it. And that's basically by overexerting yourself. So we're seeing Lubin here has a split of 140. Now he's up to 148. He's looking around a lot, and I always like to see that. So either he's super comfortable with the row, or if it's not that he's super comfortable, it's just that he's looking around a lot and forgetting where he's at, and that adrenaline's popping in a little bit. So Sam, buddy, stay in your lane. You're doing great.
A hard pull from Ruben Insua.
That is a very hard pull, and you see the damper as well. I mean, he's gone pretty far up, and that's exactly what I talked about before. Once again, I'd like to say what I said to start with. There's no right or wrong. It's all what you're used to doing, but that was a pretty hard pull to start with, and that may cost him on the double unders.
And here is Basil Kadamesh out of CrossFit Ramallah, and the importance here, and we said it on the team side, that this regional split where we now have Europe and Meridian, we're seeing more athletes, more teams, we're seeing more nations represented, and Basil is the first Palestinian athlete to qualify for regionals, and we spoke about that opportunity where you don't only get to represent yourself for the first time, but your nation for the first time, and this has got to be a good moment.
This is a great moment. You can tell that he's doing pretty good, and he's enjoying every bit of it. And also he's doing great on the road, just pacing himself really, really well. What I really liked was what he did right then. He noticed that the camera was on him, had a bit of a laugh about it, but then he got right back to business. He's not just here to partake, he's here to make a mark.
And how tough is the journey if you're trying to qualify for here out of Palestine? There's only 3 affiliates in that nation, one of which is in Ramallah. He owns that.
And it just, once again, it just goes to tell, I mean, it tells heaps about where this community is going. It started in a 2-car garage, Research Drive, right? And this is where we're at. We've got people from Palestine
So judges' arms are up in the air for our leaders as we're in the final little portion of this 3,000 meter row, and you said about 10.5 minutes, 11 minutes is what you were looking at. The event record split around the 10.5 minute mark. Of course, there were some times a little bit faster, just unable to hold on to have that event record, currently held by Sigurdur Thrustarsson.
And Sigurdur did a great job of making sure that he kept the pace that would allow him to go fast on the double unders. Still, I mean, all these guys can go a lot faster. That's never going to be the issue. But it's all about pacing yourself, because the motor skills of doing that double under, I mean, you get there and you're out of breath and your shoulders are slightly taxed, it just won't be as fast.
Waiting for the first man to break away from the rower, make his way to the jump rope for 300 double unders.
And you see these guys are still, nobody's taking the foot off the pedal, but nobody's accelerating either. They're all making sure just stick to the plan, keep the same pace, get off so that you're all ready to just address the double unders immediately.
In lane number 15, first athlete, as well as in lane number 2. So we got Sam Lubin and Ruben Insua. So two very different strategies on the row, as we saw one going with a lighter pace, a lower damper setting, and that was Lubin. We had Insua going with the high damper setting, the hard pole, and they wind up at about the same place.
Exactly. The question is, who taxed themselves more? Ruben is having a blast with the spectators, making sure that he's posing for pictures as well. And, well, you can say what you want, but he's sure enjoying his regional experience.
Sam Lubin again.
There he is.
I mean, so after the first round, after the 18.5, he was sitting outside of the qualifying spots. He posted on social media, "This is probably the best thing that could have happened to me. I know what I have to work on now." And then came the next wave of invites. He was in there. He got to work on regionals instead of working towards the Open in 2019.
But it's a great inspiration to be able, and a great mindset to come in with, I'm here to learn. We've seen that from both teams and individuals in the past. They get here, they learn a lot, they go right back to the drawing table, and they come back the next year stronger and better.
Man in the bright yellow shoes was the first one to finish the 3,000 meter row. That is Ruben Insua. He's already through the first 100 double unders, as indicated by being in the second segment of his lane.
And it may not be that these guys are necessarily the first guys to get onto the run either. I'm seeing a lot of athletes out there right now just very efficient on the double unders.
Insua, the leader after the row, 5-time Spanish champion in martial arts.
Which means he's probably been out there doing his morning runs as well.
Now, we were talking about this a lot on the team side, about your arm placement, hand placement, the way that you move your wrists or your arms. What are you seeing here for Insua?
Well, Ruben is using his he's using his shoulders a lot. Elbows are pretty far out from the body, and he's using his entire arm to propel that rope forward, and that costs you energy. It takes out a little bit all the time. Whereas if you can bring your hands in a little bit more, use your wrist to whip that jump rope around, you're just more composed altogether, and that you don't exert as much energy.
Got a handful of men that are into the final 100 double unders. In lane number 16, black shirt and white headband is Rob Scalacci. He's right into the mix here, moving into the final 100.
Well, he is, and we talked about it. Nothing is really decided after the row. It's kind of setting yourself up so that you can do good on the double unders. And there's several athletes that are out there right now looking very good on the double unders. As I say that, he's taking a breather. I'm jinxing these people.
Now, a man to keep an eye on in the white shirt that you saw a moment ago. He's into the final 100 double unders. I mentioned his name earlier. That's Mohamed Alomda. He is the man with the fastest recorded 5K in our field here at regionals at just over 17 minutes. If he's in striking distance getting onto that assault runner, that could be a warning sign for the rest of the field, as the first man to reach the assault runner will be Scalacci, as there is Alomda also working on his final few double unders. I believe he's about 50 to go based on his pace.
And we're seeing a lot of guys, Jonas Müller getting up there on the assault runner as well, and I know that he spent some time on this as well. There are so many guys out there. You see Mark Ordig, lots of experience along with a lot of young guns out there. Being a good runner is one thing. What you need to do, though, you need to be used to running on the assault runner. It's a slightly different technique.
Amazing we haven't brought up this man's name just yet. Jonas Müller, who is in heat number 1, not the position that he wants to be in coming into the weekend, but somebody to keep an eye on over the course of these 6 events.
Oh, but he definitely is. I mean, we saw in Berlin, we saw Lucas Högberg also in that heat, but he made it all the way to Madison. So being in this first heat doesn't mean that any doors are closed.
Much of the field already making their way onto the assault runner, and of course every 400 meters on this run they will advance the chess piece that is in front of the assault runner, so we'll have a good visual indicator of where the leaders are based on those chess pieces, but that is the only information these athletes will have.
And you can't really look too much at that. Once you get to the point where you start looking at the chess piece, that chess piece moves every 400 meters, and a sprint to catch up with somebody that's 400 meters long, that's just way too long.
It's interesting because we saw this event, and this has been a common talking point over the past couple of weeks, that we saw this event in the 2014 Reebok CrossFit Games. It was one of the early tests. It was hot that morning. We saw that take a factor, but we're seeing the times there be 2.5 to 4 minutes faster on average, and the only change, aside from the obviously the weather as we're indoors here at regionals, is the assault runner. It's amazing how much difference that has made.
It's a completely different technique running on the assault runner. What you see is that when you're outside, basically what you're doing is that you're tilting, you're kind of leaning forward and then parrying that potential fall by running, and so your cadence kind of decides where you go from there. But if you do the same thing on the assault runner, if you start leaning forward, what that does is it accelerates the band, it accelerates the assault runner, and then you have to lean back to start braking it. So what you want to do is you want to find yourself pretty much centered above it, and then hitting that stride right in the curve, in the incline of the assault runner.
So your leader will be Mark Ordig in lane number 5. He had that chess piece move first. We're seeing a couple more of those start to move their way down the floor. Now, this is a very long event. You will note that obviously as we keep moving, those chess pieces will move down the floor. We'll have a good visual representation on the lead. And what we're going to do is we're going to step aside for a little bit. We'll let the race play out. We'll rejoin our coverage here at the broadcast booth once we get near the end of our first heat.
If you're just now joining us, we're here at the Meridian Regional in Madrid, taking on individual event 1 on the male side of the competition, 333. These athletes are already done with their 3,000 meters of rowing, 300 double unders, and now they are working through their 3-mile run. Jonas Müller on lane 13 is leading the way with Mark Ordig on lane 5. Francisco Godinho, lane 12, holding on to that 3rd spot. So your current top 3 in the heat, Müller, Godinho, and Ordig.
Transcurren ahora mismo, estamos a punto de llegar a los 20 minutos de WOD, 20 minutos de evento. Ya tenemos muchos atletas que han completado ya esos 400 metros.
This event, Triple Three, was featured at the CrossFit Games a few years back. That was the first time we saw this event come up. And every single year we see a few things trickle down to the regional level from that Games level. So definitely this is a new challenge for these regional athletes. We haven't had an event this long ever before at this level. So 49 minutes is the time cap, and previously the longest event that we had was around 30 minutes with the time cap. So it's significantly longer here with this event number 1 of 2018.
Mark Urdage también adelanta posición, se sitúa junto a Müller, Godiño y Visser.
Have a pretty even field here. These cones are moving steadily forward. Nobody's separated themselves from the pack clearly here so far. We're coming up on 22 minutes. Lane 19, AJ Visser. Looks like he might be a little bit ahead of the pack here.
Recordamos que el time cap es de 47 minutos, no, perdón, 49 minutos.
So at the moment here in this heat 1, Visser holding the lead, lane 19, and Müller and Godiño, middle of the field, lanes 12 and 13, trying to chase him down. And in lane 5, Mark Urdage rounding out the top 4 here in this heat 1.
Tenemos que decir que los cambios en este hit van a ser muy rápidos. Solo habrá un minuto de parada. En el minuto número 50, el segundo hit de 20 atletas tendrá que estar preparado para comenzar esos 3000 metros en los remos.
Right now we're starting to see a little bit of separation. 2 men, AJ Visser, lane 19, and Jonas Müller, lane 13. Now these 2 men in the lead here.
Mark Urdeich adelanta posiciones. Se sitúa en cuarta posición ahora mismo.
Lane 19, AJ Visser. Chest piece moving forward again. That means another 400 meters is done for him. He's already halfway done with his 3-mile run.
Jonas Müller pierde esa primera posición. Es adelantado por AJ Visser.
Now Jonas Müller, his chest piece moves forward again, so he's about 40 seconds behind AJ Visser. This assault runner is a very unforgiving piece of equipment. If you've never used it before, it will be very, very hard to find your own pace on this. It's easy to start going a little bit too fast. You have to slow down, and then you get into a seesaw effect where it's very hard to settle into your own pace. And this assault runner definitely rewards the athletes that have good running mechanics, that know how to run well. It's a little bit easier to do it here. But it's also a very, very taxing piece of equipment for your hamstrings because there's no engine. You're only moving it yourself, so you're basically pulling yourself forward all the time.
Mark Urdeich se coloca en tercera posición. Tenemos que destacar a AJ Visser en la calle número 19, que toma una clara ventaja respecto al resto de atletas. Les sigue en segunda posición Jonas Müller en la calle número 13.
Jonas Müller currently holding a 7:47 pace for a mile. As AJ Visser is pretty much steady at 8 minutes per mile pace.
in the lobby, they just trying to get established. God, I've been guilty fornicating from my status. All I wanted was $100 million and a bad. Plus that paper chasing it turned me to a savage. Groupies in the lobby, they just trying to get established. God, I've been guilty fornicating from my status.
Still leading the way is AJ Visser on lane 19, but Jonas Müller on lane 13 is trying to catch up. His pace is a little bit faster than AJ's. As we're coming close to the last stretch of this run.
Welcome back to the Caja Mágica in Madrid, Spain, as we got about 3/4 of a mile left, and on this run portion we've had two that were absolutely shot out of a cannon. One we kind of expected with Jonas Müller, who is in the second position, but your leader is a weightlifter in an endurance event. AJ Visser, the 2016 South African champion in weightlifting, leads the way with a quick pace here on this 5K portion.
He is doing amazing. And what we talked about initially was how you position yourself on the assault runner can serve you well. Obviously, he's a good runner to start with, but you also see him, he's slightly further forward on the assault runner, which means that there could be a balancing issue, but if you negotiate that, what it means is that with a shorter stride, you still get a lot of speed out of the assault runner. And he's doing just an amazing job at utilizing the tool to his advantage.
Your top five, it's Visser in first, his chest piece all the way at the top of the screen in lane number 19. Jonas Müller in second, Mark Ordeig in third, in lane number 12, Francisco Godino in fourth, and Mohamed Alomda in fifth.
And this is when I think we're going to start seeing some of these athletes opening up just a little bit. If they're not happy with where they're at positioning or placement-wise right now, this is when they need to start opening up just a little bit. Not a sprint, but just increasing that cadence a little bit.
Leaders into the final 3/4 of a mile, much of the field in the final mile.
I just love what we saw from AJ Visser. He came off the rower, just pacing himself through that, did good on the double unders, but once he got onto the assault runner, it was a whole different story. He just got after it immediately, and he's held on to that position.
I keep going back to the fact that it's a weightlifter leading an endurance event. It's unexpected when you just piece those pieces of information together.
And it just goes to tell once again that you shouldn't necessarily read too much into these athletes' past. They have extended what they have in the toolbox. Obviously, he's running very well, and he's running very well on the assault runner as well.
He's into the final half mile, 800 meters to go for AJ Visser. Nobody else really within, I would say, about 100 or 200 meters, and you got to go back a good way until you get to 5th place.
But exactly, and we've been looking at him all through the event, and definitely through the run where he just made his move, and he doesn't look phased at all. Arm movement still the same, stride pace still the same, head movement still the same. I was a little bit worried to start with that he was looking down all the time, but he's been doing that through, well, pretty much since he got on the runner. So I think that's the way it should be.
It'll be about a 40-second lead going into the final half mile for Visser over Jonas Müller in second.
And we know that Jonas Müller, who defines himself as Hobbit strength, that we know he's always been a good runner. He does run very well, and he's so composed in everything that he does. So I'm not surprised to see him out here. Visser, on the other hand, like we said, I'm surprised, impressed, and I'm just very happy to see him moving the way he does.
Approaching the 35-minute mark. We're a minute away from the event record time of 35:25. That appears to be safe. And again, that's one of those moments where you just sit there and think, how impressive was that time that we saw in week number 1? But we're seeing impressive times here as well, with AJ Visser now into the final quarter mile. 400 meters to go, and I don't think anybody else has a shot, barring disaster, for Visser.
I have to be completely honest with you, and I don't see it either. I think it's going to be down to a sprint between Ordik and Jonas Müller, but AJ Visser with that pace right now and the way he keeps the cadence going, his entire body language, no, he's got this in the bag, barring disaster.
AJ Visser, the third from last qualifier out of Africa, Middle East to be here, and he might be shooting himself up the leaderboard after our first heat.
And, you know, with the background in weightlifting, I think we're going to see him do well later in the events as well. It's not just, this isn't what he's got. I mean, there's still a lot to come from this young man.
Jonas Müller into the final quarter mile as well, but again, it's still about 40 seconds behind the lead. And for Müller, he's doing exactly what he needs to do, as this is going to be a solid position with still 1 heat remaining. But this time is going to be very fast. We've seen very few under the 37-minute mark. It looks like he's on pace for that as we hit the 36-minute mark in this 49-minute time cap event. As we are nearing the end for our leader, AJ Visser, you see him second from the top of the screen with the tattoo on his right shoulder.
And he's just putting the finishing touches on this.
You can see him picking up the pace just a little bit.
And of course, he knows that there's another heat, so he's going to have to go out here and do good, put a good number on the board. He is doing that, and if he's got a little bit left in the tank, go for it.
All that's left after he hits the 3-mile mark is a short sprint down the floor. AJ Visser should just be a few moments away from making that trek down the floor of the Caja Mágica. Jonas Müller into the final 200 meters.
Jonas Müller still looking very strong. Looks like he's increased his pace a lot as well.
And it's Jonas Müller that's gonna move his way down the floor. And heat number 1, it's gonna be defined by some Hobbit strength as Müller takes the heat. 37:35, the unofficial time. And I'm wondering if the chess piece might have been 1 ahead of where it should have been this time, because this has been a long time in the final 400. So we might have had that kind of a situation there. As AJ Visser has his judge's hand up, which is a more clear indication of where they are.
And it may have just fueled Jonas Müller through an epic sprint on the end, in the end as well, though.
As we clear the 38-minute mark, Jonas kind of had this look of just like, yeah, okay. As he was talking to somebody in the crowd, and AJ Visser, he's done. He's got to make his way down the floor. It's going to be good for second in the heat as you see him striding his way across the floor in at 38 minutes and 29 seconds. Not bad for being 708th in the world coming out of the open. He'll be number 2 in heat number 1.
And not bad for somebody who we thought was a weightlifter. Guess what? AJ Visser, you are a CrossFit athlete.
So it'll be 37:34, the time to beat going forward into heat number 2. That by Jonas Müller. Hands up for Mark Ortega in lane number 5. Also a hand up for Mohamed Alomda in lane number 17. It's going to be Ortega making his way off of the runner first. And that is a run we are used to seeing over these 3 weeks of regionals. He'll cross the line at about 39 minutes and 13 seconds. I believe he was the 3rd or 4th athlete onto the runner as well, so he held position pretty well. Mohamed Alomda, he was, I believe, one of the final 5 to get onto the runner. He'll move his way all the way up to 4th in the heat. at about 39 minutes, 34 seconds. 4 athletes with the judge's hand up, indicating they're in the final few hundred. We've got Sam Lubin in lane number 2. We've got Basil Kadamesh in lane 7. Alex Evans in lane number 8. Yavuz Senturk in lane number 18, but it's going to be Sam Lubin that'll be the first one to make his way down the floor, and it'll be a top 5 finish here in heat number 1 for him. Basil Kadamesh will be the next athlete to cross the line. Will be in 6th, just over the 40-15 mark. We're going to have a foot race. It's going to be a sprint. Alex Evans has to get across the line. He might have lost position to Justin Swart.
Epic sprint. If you've got that left in the tank, then use it now.
By about a 10th, Evans will hold on to that position as Swart made the sprint to the line, nearly caught him.
That's Yavuz Senturk on his way now to finish up.
They have 9 in under the 41-minute mark. Seeing a quick heat.
It is very good. There are a lot of capable guys out here.
Next finisher, lane number 6, will be Sam Parkin. Also, oh, sorry, that was a judge making his way across the floor. Also in lane number 15,
Insua.
it was Ruben Insua.
And this is still good pace by these athletes out here. It just goes to show how fast these first athletes were.
Joao Ferreira will be our next finisher as he's made his way down the floor. There he goes, the black shirt. At about 41:40. 8 of our 20 remaining on the floor. See a judge's hand up for half of those 8. That'll be David Arici. Be our 13th finisher. 14th finisher will be Amin Atala. Guilherme Magnois be our 15th finisher. They're coming quick at this point.
Scalacci running in.
And that leaves 4. 2 are in their final 200 meters. Next finisher will be Francisco Coutinho. He makes his way across the floor.
Di Francesco was in your picture just a second ago. He's about to finish up as well. Some happy and exhausted faces right here. Here he is, Di Francesco. But he looks like he's going to get beat by Husson.
Lane number 20, David Ben David, will be our next finisher. 19th place at 43:09. Just waiting for those last couple meters to make its way off the runner. And we're going to round out the field for Stefano De Francesco at 43 minutes and 20 seconds. But it's Jonas Mueller at 37 minutes, 34 seconds that will have the top time with 1 heat remaining. And that one caught us a little bit off guard as we had a little confusion with the chess piece there. But that was somebody that we expected to do well here in this one.
How he finished up did surprise us. That he was going to be there didn't surprise us. As we talked about before, lots of experience both from team and individual competition. We know that he knows how to run, and we also know that he's been filling out what he thought were voids in his fitness game over the last couple of years, and it looks really, really good.
And he was somebody that just narrowly missed out on being here 1 year ago, and that has definitely fueled him coming into this season.
Oh God, yes. Follow him on social media, and you know that he took that fire and he did something creative with it.
So he leads the way. Of course, we will have 1 heat remaining on our triple threes with our top 20 coming out of the open. But it's Jonas Mueller at 37 minutes, 34 seconds, nearly 1 minute quicker than AJ Visser. Mark Ordeg in 3rd, Mohamed Alonda in 4th, and Sam Lubin round out our top 5. But it's Jonas Mueller leading the way with 1 heat to go at 37:34, and he's with Nikki Brazier.
So Jonas, you were just saying you're not the fastest rower, but you were able to open it up on the run. How did that translate into the run for you?
So I knew that from the beginning that I had to pace myself on the rower and as well on the double under so that I can increase the pace towards the end.
I know you said when you crossed the finish line, you looked at me and you just said, man, that was hard. It feels different today than it did in training?
Yeah, totally. So I'm from Switzerland, so it's raining all the time. But here it's hotter, so I had a hard time to breathe well.
Well, you still did a great job. Nice work here in your first event.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys.
So Mueller will have the lead, one heat remaining with heat number 2 coming up in a few moments. Welcome back to Madrid, Spain, the Caja Mágica, where we're ready for heat number 2 for the men's 333, our opening event of the 2018 Rebound CrossFit Games Meridian Regional. Brandon Domain, Mads Jakobsen, and Nikki Brazier with you here in Spain. And what these athletes do know is that it's going to take a very quick time to take the top time after what we saw in heat number 1.
The stage is set after heat number 1. It was an impressive effort by the first athletes, or by all athletes, but the time set up here means that these guys have their work cut out for them. And what they have to do, though, is the 333. So event number 1 is 333, 4-time, 3,000-meter row, 300 double unders, followed by a 3-mile run. The time cap is 49 minutes.
And these will be our top 20 qualifiers coming out of the Open, the top 10 in each of the 2 regions, Africa, Middle East, and Europe South. And in our second grouping of 20, there's going to be a few of the favorites for those 4 qualifying spots. Here on our first page of 10, somebody to keep an eye on, of course, Lucas Estlinger in lane number 9, Willie Georges in lane number 10. We'll have Jason Smith, and we'll talk about his journey the past couple weeks. He'll be in lane 11, Elliot Simmons in lane 18, Rasmus Anderson in lane 19.
And you've also got in lane number 12, Ryan Duvenage, who you can just never kind of take your eye off. You know that he's got some game, you know that he's hungry coming in here, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he does.
Few seconds away, and again, that time to beat, they know it's going to be fast. It was only 2 minutes off the event record, 37 minutes, 34 seconds by Jonas Mueller in heat number 1.
Jonas Mueller he had some fire in him that last quarter mile. Just didn't want to let off at all, and then he thought he was chasing AJ Visser as well.
Stand by.
49-minute time cap, which was only about 5 minutes away from hitting anybody in heat number 1, as that might have been the fastest average heat that we've seen, especially for the opening heat of any field in regionals thus far.
It was impressive. We sat here looking at AJ Visser, and he may not have been in the lead. It may have been a mishap with the chest piece. We don't know, but what he was really, really, really impressive. And he kind of pushed the envelope for the rest of the field as well. We saw a lot of guys out there whom I think didn't think the start was going to be that fast and was going to get fast a little bit later. It got fast real fast.
Now these 20 athletes saw what happened. They were in the staging area for part of that event, but they were by a monitor because they had the monitors out there. Does that pace throw them off their game any in this one?
I don't think so. I think they're all aiming for that kind of finish. It's just you just never know what you get until you get out there on the floor. So I don't think so. If it does change anything, it may be that somebody goes, you know what, I was going to get off the rower at about 10 minutes and 30 seconds. I may just shave a little bit off of that, but that's the only thing.
Left side of the screen in the gray shirt, we have Jason Smith. The interesting story that he's had, and this is going to be a big test for him, is a couple of weeks ago while testing event number 5, he injured his foot. And obviously if you have a foot injury, we have double unders and we have running coming up. It's going to be a big test for him.
That being said, I had the pleasure of talking to him yesterday, and I asked him, so how's the foot doing? And he said, well, you know, I talked to the doctor, we looked at it, nothing is broken, so it's just going to be pain. That says about anything you need to know about the guy. He's been to the games before, he's always been good in regional competition. And then, you know, he shows up now. We know he's got an injury, but he's just not going to let that phase him at all.
Smith working on the row, trying to make his second appearance at the games. A year ago, he became the first native games qualifier from the African region, and he's been in the top 100 worldwide in the Open 4 consecutive years, so he's always been that looming threat that finally paid off for him a year ago.
It did. What he did last year, I think he just got everything kind of matched up, like both training wise, you know, when to train, who to train with, and it just paid off really well on the floor. He was never bad before, but he just always missed that extra little thing. Last year, he definitely had that extra thing, and I think it threw a lot of people off if they haven't been to the competitions before. So on the left side of your screen in the white t-shirt right there, you've got Elliot Simmons. And I remember one of the fondest moments of the regionals last year was when Elliot Simmons just came onto the floor, and he did an amazing job. I want to see him do the same thing right here.
There's a look at Elliot in the white and blue.
And one of the things with Elliot is that he's not just strong, he doesn't just have a great engine, he moves really well as well. And I'm just thinking that this could be the year for Elliot. He said when we talked afterwards last year, he said, well, you know, this was a learning experience. I'm going to go back to the drawing table. I'm going to come back stronger this year. And I think he did.
He has that feel of somebody like a Jason Smith did coming into last year, just kind of knocking on that door. You expect it to happen at some point, but you're waiting for that glass ceiling to break.
Oh, absolutely. And with this much talent and this much raw strength, that ceiling was going to break at some point. It's just whether the athlete can accept that it may not have been the year that they thought it was going to be.
Judges' hands going up with the number 2 indicated, as that means that they have passed the 1,000 meter mark, 2,000 meters to go.
So we don't have to be afraid that any of these guys are overexerting themselves and trying to set some kind of universal record by a 3K row in 4 minutes. That's not what this is.
About 4 minutes in, and here's a look at Jason Smith and the monitor for his rower.
And so he's going very fast. The 144 split right now is very fast. Not necessarily fast for him. You can tell that he's doing pretty good. He's also got a pretty high stroke rate. That's the bottom part of his display right here. It says 24 to 25 strokes per minute, and he looks really comfortable. Looks like he's settled in. But he does when you look at him, you can see he's got a little bit higher damper setting, so the pull is going to be a little bit harder. That being said, I think he's the kind of guy who always has that. I couldn't imagine that he would go lower and increase the stroke rate.
He's already near the halfway point. 80 meters away from that. We're still just now getting to the 5-minute mark, and you think about 5 to 10 seconds to transition onto the rower at the start.
But this could also be something that Jason has planned, considering that his foot may not be, I mean, it may hurt a little bit. So he may have thought, you know what, I'm going to get off the rower a little bit faster. I'm going to take it a little bit easy on the double unders, not to stress my foot too much before I get onto that treadmill and to start going for it. Or, as you alluded to a little bit earlier, maybe he looked at the previous heat and said, you know what, I'm not sure if I can keep that pace on the run. I'm going to try to make it up a little bit on the row. I mean, you look at the event, you're going 3,000 meter row, double unders, and a run. Not too much to do here. Not too many things to think about. But the time that these guys are out there, every single minute is an option to change your game plan. So it's going to give you 35 minutes of being able to change. But they're all really relaxed as we're looking at them rowing right here. Another one of the things that can happen every once in a while is that you're looking at Lucas Estlinger right now. And I know that Lucas Estlinger, green t-shirt, blue shorts to the right side of your screen, he's super comfortable. There he is. He's super comfortable on the rower. He does a lot of this endurance work, his endurance work on the rower as well. And it's easy if you're sitting next to an athlete like that to kind of fall into the trap of keeping the same pace as they are, and that may not be your pace. So he's going to 148 split, slightly higher stroke rate, bottom of the screen right there. Looks very comfortable as well.
Now again, this region, one of 2 that won't have the traditional 5 being sent. Of course, Latin America has 1. That leaves 4 spots remaining. Those 4 spots coming here from the Meridian Regional. So a little bit tighter competition. We spoke about the point implications of that, having to survive a bad event. But with the smaller amount of people going, Lucas Estlinger is still one of those athletes that you look at as a favorite for those 4.
Definitely, just because he's been at this level for a long time. He's able to train. He's been able to train harder this last year than he has in the past, just because of studies, and then combining being able to train harder with the fact that he's got a lot of experience. I would consider him one of the favorites out here on the floor, but there's no way, shape, or form is he's safe. But I like what I'm seeing from Lucas so far. Looks very composed, very calm.
So we should be about 2/3 of the way, if not a little bit past that, on this 3,000-meter row. Field still settling in, looking very calm. As here in lane number 10, is Willie Georges out of Lagarde, France. And the reason we show him is he's the #1 seed out of Europe South, and oh, by the way, only the #3 qualifier in the Open worldwide.
And you can never ignore an athlete who's done that. And I think he's going to be interesting to watch, because I think that in everybody's mind, everybody who walks onto the floor, even the established names who've been here before, know exactly what Willie did. And they're going to be looking at him, so is he going to push it or not? So especially here on first day, it's a lot of looking around, finding out where everybody's at. Was the Open just that, the Open or not? But look at Willie Georges, 144 split, 500 meters to go.
That's going to be about a 10:15 coming off that rower. That is a quick pace for the man that finished 18th 1 year ago at this regional. But since then, he did post on social media at the start of the Open that he is, quote, a much better athlete than a year ago. It's time to prove it. And that from being 18th last year.
This would be a great way to prove it, going out there and keeping that pace. We have seen it before. I just want to raise it. I'm not saying Willie Georges is there, but we have seen people in the past who came off the rower, made it onto the double unders really, really fast, but then just weren't able to hold on to that pace as we moved on. Willie Georges, though, I mean, this is when, just like he said, it's time to show that he's the real deal.
Saw the first athletes in heat number 1 make their way off the rower about 10:30, 10:40, somewhere around there. We saw much of the field make their way off it within about 15, 20 seconds of each other as well. So not much gained advantage-wise on the row, but if somebody breaks off at 10:15, that could be significant.
That could definitely be significant. Especially if he can follow that up by being consistent on the double unders. If he gets to the run, let's say 20, 25 seconds ahead of everybody else, it could be an interesting day, because then people are going to have to start catching up.
Just past the 10-minute mark in this 49-minute time cap event to open up the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games Meridian Regional. Final stages of a 3,000-meter row to kick off triple three. First man off the rower is Willie Georges, and Jason Smith will be right behind him. They're at 10:30. It looks like they both pulled off the pace just a little bit before getting onto the rope.
I think they did. That's still a pretty significant lead to give to two athletes of this caliber, though.
Wow, we have not seen a split like this, where the field is separated 15 seconds back to third, which will be Elliot Simmons. Lucas Esslinger will be fourth, and the 4 favorites coming into the weekend are your top 4 coming off the rower.
And they're going to have to hold on to this, because this just turned into a dogfight.
Now, the interesting thing for the lead, and you think about this when you have the double stacked field, where what's traditionally the lanes and those splits in the lane, you have somebody else using that. You wanted to get a little bit of space away from each other. And normally, if you come off the rower, you got some time for 50 reps maybe to pull away. Jason Smith and Willie Georges are right next to each other.
Yes. And then there's the whole thing about these athletes being so close to each other. Not everybody's used to that. If I was one of these athletes, I would have definitely spent some time next to a lot of people in the box at home, practicing and getting used to not jumping too far out of space.
Because look how close they are. Those are just centimeters away from each other. And we saw 2 different strategies going past the 100 rep mark, where Willie Georges broke it up. He hit 100, stopped, stepped forward, started again. Jason Smith jumped towards the end of that first box, moved to the next box while still moving, and continued to move. And that might have cut a 3 or 4 second interval between them right there.
And I mean, it may be it's a psychological thing to do because the gain is really minimal considering that they've still got a 3-mile run to get into. But mentally, it's a whole different beast.
Now the second time, passing the 200 rep mark, we saw Willie George do that jump forward.
Willie George adapts fast.
He just moved forward towards the box. I apologize. Now he's at the 200 rep mark.
Virtually at the same time as Jason Smith.
Elliot Simmons, the third man to get to the double unders.
It's just a pleasure to see this young man move.
He'll be the third man into the final 100, but continues to be Willie George and Jason Smith controlling the pace. You can't get much closer than these three are getting with those handles coming out wide, especially for Willie George. He goes with that wider positioning.
Yep. You got Lucas Estlinger right next to him as well. It's gotten very interesting very fast.
A no rep in the final 5 for Willie George, but he'll still be the first man to make it onto the assault runner at 13 minutes 27 seconds. Jason Smith will be about 5 seconds back.
And that's a pretty substantial lead and before anybody else gets on there. Question is, who's it going to be? It looks like it's going to be Elliot Simmons. It's going to be the next athlete to join these two gentlemen, Willie George and Jason Smith on the assault runner.
Keep in mind the time to beat here, 37 minutes, 34 seconds by Jonas Mueller in heat number 1. The event record, 35:25, and both Willie George and Jason Smith were faster than that pace set by Sigurdur Thrustarsson in week 1.
But Sigurdur Thrustarsson he made his move on the run. I mean, he really got after that run and just did not let off at any point. And if you're seeing right here, Elliot Smith, just look at his pace. If he's going to be able to hold on to that, because he is moving very, very fast. You see his head not moving too far up and down, which is a good sign, which means he's in balance. It also means he's not exerting any more energy than he has to on his quads.
Interesting here is he's the only one, I believe, that's actually wearing a heart rate monitor. And he specifically asked about that in the athlete briefing last night. What do you believe he's trying to do with that? Is that more for long-term over the course of the weekend, or is that just to keep an eye on things?
Well, I think it's both. I think it's a way of making sure that he doesn't find himself getting sucked into somebody else's pace, that he holds on to his pace, and he knows exactly that the first mile I'm going to try to keep this, second mile I want to try to be there, and then with this and this much left, can I or can I not sprint, or should I not sprint? And if you've used this tool in your training all year long, great thing. If you've only just started, maybe not so much.
So those pylons, the chess pieces, they'll move forward every 400 meters. It'll give you a visual representation of where everybody is. So you saw Jason Smith, his hands did grab that rail. It looked like he either stepped off to the side or he kind of had a misstride there. But you are able to grab onto the rails if you're falling off or if you're restarting, but if you're in motion, you're not allowed to have your hands on the railing.
And one of the things that happens as well is when you're on there, if you start looking to your side, you usually lose balance. So it doesn't necessarily have to be anything more than that.
Now this is going to be the big question going forward. He got through the 300 double unders fine. Now we're going to have 3 miles of running and 3 miles of impact on that foot for Jason Smith.
And that's where if we're fortunate enough, he's going to be perfectly fine. It won't phase him in any way, shape, or form. And you know, it's all about where he puts down his foot. If he puts down his foot right in the curve, he gets a lot easier off. He doesn't have to put a lot of impact on that foot, and it should get him off the hook a little bit easier.
So it's going to be Jason Smith in first, Elliot Simmons in second, Rasmus Anderson will be third, Willie Georges and Phil Hesketh will round out the top 5.
It's the usual suspects and Willie George. Elliot Simmons right here in the middle of your screen, and Rasmus Andersen in lane 19 right next to him. He's one of these athletes that we haven't talked about him yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing him move this weekend as well.
Another one of the athletes that we haven't mentioned just yet is Alexander Anagasti. For an update on him, let's go to Nikki Frazier.
Yeah, Yeah, Brandon, Alexander actually came into this event incredibly injured on 2 fronts. So he's been dealing with some bursitis since January, and for a while he could barely run or squat or jump or anything. Made a little bit worse actually by performing in the open. Obviously didn't hamper his performance all that much since he's here, but then just last Saturday he injured himself again doing a squat clean. He said he felt a click in his hip, and then he actually couldn't walk for a little while after that. But the good news is his doctor, after checking him out, said not only was his bursitis better, but that the hip hurt only because of some muscle tissue damage. He thought just a few days ago that he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it here. So now to see him running is definitely a feat. It's good to see him out on the competition floor.
Thanks, Nikki, and definitely good to see him out there as reigning fittest man in Spain, coming out of this Open, making his regional debut. Somebody that, aside from that strength event, 18.2A, the max weight squat clean, did pretty well, where every finish was in the top 250 in the world, aside from one.
And if you're having that kind of season, obviously you want to try to take it all the way as well. You want to go to regionals, you want to do the best you can. And I'm just happy to see him out here still running fairly well. It looks like he's found his stride.
6 chess pieces are moved towards that 1,200 meter mark. Now make it 7, as it's Esslinger, George Smith, or I should say Jason Smith, as we have 2 in this one. Elliot Simmons, Rasmus Anderson, and in lane number 3, Gianluca Stitzer, our top 5, as we hit about 3/4 of a mile into this 3-mile run. There in the center of the screen is a look at Gianluca Stitzer.
And what you want to look at with all these athletes is as soon as once they get even more tired, once fatigue starts setting in, you're going to see the arms swinging a lot more than they were to start with. Initially, you just want to get a good kind of graceful little back and forth with the arms, elbows driving backwards. But as soon as you start getting tired, you're going to start pivoting a little bit to the side as well. You start rotating around your own axis. And once that happens, your head's going to start popping up and down as well, because you're forcing your foot down instead of reaching forward. So the stride kind of shortens down. So keep an eye on that.
For Stitzer, a background that bodes well for endurance, as he's a full contact world champion in kickboxing from 2009 to 2011. So somebody that has that ability to dig deep, deal with some pain, and go a pretty long distance.
And also with the background like that, you know he's been out there doing his runs. He's been out there doing his morning cardio, just getting after it. And he does look very relaxed indeed.
20 minutes in, again, the time to beat, 37:34. It's by Jonas Mueller in heat number 1. So our top 3 continues to be George, Smith, and Simmons.
Rasmus Andersen on the right-hand side of your screen right here next to Elliot Simmons. He looks good. He's always been known for being a powerhouse, incredibly strong. And if you'll follow him on social media, check out some of the assault bike intervals that he does. It may scare people. I'd advise adults have a look at it first and then have kids look at it. He does really well. But if you look at him now, he looks really comfortable and settled in on the run as well. And that makes me very happy. It bodes well for the weekend for him. Danish Dynamite right there. He may be living in Dubai, but it's Danish Dynamite to start with.
You can see the pride coming from you on that one.
I'm happy. I'm happy. Mostly happy for Rasmus, because he's not just a good athlete, he's an amazing guy as well. Somebody you can't not support him.
Now we're to the point where our leaders are about a mile in, about 2 miles to go, as we're 21 minutes and change into this. And this is that point where if you're not comfortable running, it's got to be tough to kind of settle into a pace. And yeah, you have that adrenaline from this being event number 1, but how do you handle this distance once you get to this middle point of a long run all in one place?
You need to start playing little mind games. I mean, I usually talk about this corridor that once you start an event, or once you start something like this, it's going to be you're in a corridor, you're at one end, you have a door at the end, that's the one you want to walk through, and as you progress through the event, all these doors are going to open up to your left and your right with all these really, really sexy options. Oh, you're tired, think about your calves, think about this, think about that. What you need to do in your head is you need to close these doors as fast as possible, just focus on the end goal, and then focus on your journey there. So, okay, so for the next 400 meters, I'm going to focus on this. Next 400 meters, I'm going to focus on this. Next 400 meters, and so on and so forth. Because as you said, this is when it starts hurting.
Much of the top 5 is staying the same, but a man starting to move into the picture is on the bottom of the screen in lane number 1, and that is Pedro Bartolo, the fittest man in Portugal this year in the Open, making his regional debut out of CrossFit Alpha Den. He finds himself in the 4th position as we're nearing the halfway point on this 3-mile run.
And he's doing really, really well. A little bit of an awkward running style on the assault runner, but you can tell that he's used to running. Just his breathing is really, really nice. He's moving his arms really nice, but you can tell that he's used to running outside.
He's one of a few athletes in the field with a 5K 20 minutes or quicker.
That's impressive, and like you said, if there's anything you want with you coming into this event, that's the kind of skill. But a good lead for Elliot Simmons so far.
Not seeing a whole lot of separation of these chess pieces on the floor at the Caja Mágica.
And you know, it's quite possible that a lot of these guys out here still have some left in the tank, and they're just going, well, you know what? Once I get to that last final 800 meters, that's when I'm going to start making a move. A little bit hesitant to make a move just yet, because if you make it and then somebody else still has a little bit left, you're going to find yourself in trouble. So I think they're just kind of, most guys out here are going to be happy with where they're at. If I was Elliot Simmons, I definitely would be. Billy George, the same thing.
So out in front, it is 2 men looking to make a debut appearance at the games this summer. 2 of the favorites coming into this competition as well. And there's got to be a lot of pressure, especially when we have those limited spots with only 4 here out of this regional.
Oh, we keep on talking about it, but the reason for that is that it's so important, because it's one of the things that when we walk into the warm-up area and talk to these guys, it's the first thing they say. I really need to kind of stick to this. I can't mess up because of this and that and this and that. And there's a danger in that as well. You want to be aware of the fact that you can't mess up, but if you walk into this thinking can't mess up, can't mess up, can't mess up, guess what? You'll mess up.
Now Simmons had all the hype coming into this, and that's somebody that over the past couple of years, it's deserved hype. We're just waiting on him to capitalize on it. Much the same for Willie George. Rasmus Anderson, Jason Smith have been there. The man that's got nothing to lose in this top 5 battle might be the fastest thus far on the runner, and that's Pedro Bartolo, and that chess piece is creeping forward quicker and quicker and quicker.
And he's got to be happy with that. I mean, he's seeing a little bit of blood in the water right now, and just keep on going. Bartolo's doing the only right thing right now, just staying in his lane and then just, you know, doing what he does well, which is finding his groove on that run. I mean, if you've got a 5K run that's that fast, it's because you've found a rhythm that feeds well with whatever else you're doing. So
if he hasn't been looking at the chess pieces, he might be onto the fact that he's doing something pretty good, because he glanced up a moment ago and you can kind of see this look of recognition as he saw himself on the monitor. Yep. Normally a good sign if you're up on the monitor at this point in this event.
If you can focus on that, that also means that physically you're doing pretty good. If you start looking at where everybody else is at, and you don't have to focus on an internal dialogue, or your calves are starting to cramp up.
Started seeing him starting to scan around on the floor as well, seeing where these chess pieces are, and he sees himself in the 3rd position. So it continues to be Simmons in 1st, George in 2nd, and it's Bartolo in 3rd.
Pedro, don't let go now, buddy. Just keep on going. You're looking strong. Very determined right there as well. And as I said before, he's got a slightly different technique. I just said that you want to watch it from the head going up and down. His head's going up and down. You want to make sure you don't pivot too much around your center. He does just that. At the same time, what we've also been talking about is whatever it is that got you here, don't change it now.
5 men have kind of pulled away from the field, led by Elliott Simmons. Continues to pace this one.
And you know, Jason Smith is still looking good out there. I'm happy to see him still out there. I was afraid that we were going to see him go for a mile and then go, you know what, this isn't working. But he's still looking good.
Stride looking much the same for Jason as we check back in with Smith. I don't believe that foot causing him any issues unless he's just hiding it very, very well, which wouldn't surprise me either.
Well, he is a tough nut, this guy, to be honest with you. I mean, he's not going to go out there and start whining because it hurts a little bit. But it still looks like he's moving the same way. So whether you want to recognize the pain or not, you're physically going to adapt to the fact that something is hurting, if it is hurting. But he still looks stride-wise the same as he did from the beginning. I mean, considering fatigue, but fatigue's going to set in for everybody.
I think we're about to have a pass for second pretty quickly as Pedro Bartolo has continued to close in on Willie George for that second spot. They're now pretty much simultaneously having that chest piece moved. And Elliott Simmons might have to keep his eye on lane number 1 at this point.
I was going to say, if Pedro Bartolo keeps on going the way he has right now, he's going to grab that. And Elliott's going to have to either answer or just be happy with the performance.
Now, it's an interesting point that you bring up, because at some point there has to be that choice made of, do you want to push more than you maybe wanted to get that one position, or do you want to hold something back and not wear yourself out with 5 events still remaining, including one today?
Well, you know, these athletes have had the luxury of looking at previous regionals and what's gone on there. And we've seen a lot of people that have had an issue with cramping up like calves and things like that later in day 1. And that comes into play as well, where you go, you know what, am I okay with the second place right here, and then be okay in the later events, or do I feel like this is where I want to really make my mark? That's the kind of considerations they need to have.
Approaching 3,200 meters, about the 2-mile mark. Again, we're going to 4,800 meters. As the top 3 getting to the runner, all still holding in the top 5.
It looks like Elliott Simmons is still out there in a pretty significant lead, though. Willie George about to get his chest piece moved. He looks fresh too, though.
And he still looks incredibly comfortable on this runner. As it continues to be Simmons in first, George is about a second or 2 ahead of Bartolo for third, but you got to go over a minute until you get to first place Elliott Simmons, who I'm not going to say he can coast at this point, obviously, but he has a considerable lead.
I just love to see the way he executed this. I mean, he wasn't the first onto the assault runner, but what he was definitely one of the most effective ones on the first 400 meters, and just kind of made his point right there.
This could be
I think he just found out that he was on the big screen because he started waving.
This could be a pretty good month for Elliott Simmons here as regionals this weekend. Possibly could see himself going to the games for the first time, and newly engaged to Jamie Green, who we'll be seeing in a few moments here in women's heat number 2.
Who's apparently also slightly fit.
Yeah. Pretty decent.
Yeah, pretty decent. Good dinner conversation. And Elliott's still looking good, still has the same form that he had before. And I honestly don't think, it doesn't look like he's paying too much attention to the other people's chest pieces. Now, he is out in the lead, but I really don't think, I think he's pretty much sticking to his game plan, making sure that he does what he came to do. And as we talked about before, the same thing with the heart rate monitor right there. I think he knows where he's at, what he wants to do, and what the capacity is to increase it if he needs to.
So there's 8 athletes within a quarter mile of Elliott Simmons. Again, we got to go back a minute. So I say that it's within one segment behind. So that could be anywhere from 401 meters to 800 meters, technically, if you really wanted to look at it that way. So there's not much separation in that race for 4th through about 12th. So top 3 has kind of pulled away.
And we're not surprised to see, or I'm not surprised at least to see Willie George there. Pedro Bartolo, though, I didn't know that we were going to see him here, but I'm happy to see him here. Just throwing some more cards in the game.
Final half mile for Elliott Simmons. Again, we're looking at over a minute, almost a minute and a half. In front of second place Willie George and Pedro Bartolo, who at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and say they're racing for second and third.
So Jonas Müller finished out in 37 minutes and 34 seconds. And Elliott is has about 600 meters to go, approximately.
That's that time isn't going to last a whole lot longer. So we're about 4 minutes away from that, as we're just past the 33-minute mark. Again, the event record 35:25. That would take some work, but it's not out of the question.
You know that Sigurður Thrastason is sitting at home going, "You don't have to do it, buddy. Don't worry about it."
You can win with 35:26.
What's most impressive about what we're seeing right now is that, yes, Elliott is out in the lead. He has a substantial lead, but all these guys are running very, very well. And Blair Morrison said it once way back at the then European Regional. He says, it's kind of freaky to get to Europe because everybody knows how to run. Even the guys who says they can't are giving me a race for my money. And Blair Morrison, ladies and gentlemen, can run.
Still an over 1 minute lead for Elliott Simmons over Willie George and Pedro Bartolo. As the final 400 meters underway for Elliott Simmons, into the final half mile for that race for second between George and Bartolo.
Looks like Pedro's having that little bit of internal dialogue right now. How hard do I really need to go now? I mean, if I were him, I'd be pretty happy with where I'm at right now. So, do you start sprinting now, or do you just keep this pace and finish it off the way you have?
Again, event record 35 minutes, 25 seconds by Sigurður Þrústason in week number 1 out in Berlin. It's about 15 seconds away. I don't see a judge's hand up, so I think that event record is going to survive with one regional remaining to take on this event. But what is unlikely to survive is that time of 37:34 by Jonas Müller in heat number 1, as that's still about 2 minutes away, and we're into the final 100 meters for Elliott Simmons. It's going to mirror his start 1 year ago where he won the very first event of the weekend, but after that, he had no top 10 finish after event number 3. It was complete 180 in the course of that weekend from the first half to the back half. Trying to change that story this time is Elliott Simmons. He won event number 1 a year ago, and he'll win event number 1 in 2018 as well. Elliott Simmons takes triple threes in impressive fashion.
And Elliott Simmons 2018 is a different beast than 2017. There's something in this young man's eye. He has not come here to win one event. He's come here because he wants to go to Madison.
Now the race is for second. Willie George and Pedro Bartolo give Bartolo the edge based on the judges' hands going up. wait and see who will take second, and it might be just for the heat. Again, that time of 37:34, we're within about 40 seconds of that. Should be in the final 200 meters for both Bartolo and George. Also into the final quarter mile is Jason Smith.
Bartolo looking good right here, about to get off the runner, finish it off as well.
Give Jonas Mueller second place for his time in heat number 1, as that time has now come and gone. You gotta go back away to the second fastest time in heat number 1 though. Second fastest time in heat number 2 is gonna belong to Pedro Bartolo. 37:49. He'll be just ahead of Willie George, who will be our third finisher, also under the 38-minute mark. So we'll have 4 finishers under 38 minutes, 3 of them here in heat number 2.
And Pedro Bartolo looked happy with that performance right there. And I think he should be. That was amazing.
The most fired up I've seen anybody coming out of that runner.
It was a bit of it was taking a page out of Josh Bridges' celebration right there, and I like that. Get fired up. Congratulations.
Judge's hand is up for Jason Smith in lane number 11. He's in line to be our 4th finisher in the heat. There's gonna be some time starting to factor in from heat number 1. Also have a judge's hand up for Stefan Osonga in lane number 7.
And Anthony Monks as well in lane number 16.
Rasmus Anderson with a judge's hand up, but it's gonna be Jason Smith that'll be the first one off the runner. And he will cross the line at 38 minutes and 49 seconds. And based on appearance, I gotta say that foot looks like it held up pretty well.
It does, it definitely does.
Stefan Osonga will be our 5th finisher here in the heat. That is a solid finish there. Got a handful of athletes with the judge's hand up. Who will be the first one to make the break? It's gonna be Rasmus Anderson, but he's gonna have to hold off Anthony Monks. He's also gonna have to hold off Lucas Esslinger. It'll be Anderson, Monks, and Esslinger, 1, 2, 3 in that foot race.
And now we've got Phil Hesketh and Stefano Migliorini, and let's see, who else do we have? Fabio Bugatti on the way to finishing up here, and Phil Hesketh looks like...
That's a big man stride making his way down the floor after this event.
And that's Fabio Bugatti right there.
Fabio will round out our top 10 here in heat number 2, right at the 40-minute mark. He'll be in at 39:58. Next finisher will be Alexander Anasagasti.
And Migliorini just finished off as well. Stefano Migliorini did a great job of finishing off right here. So it looks like our next athlete will be in lane number 14. Alain Folie.
Cannot get over how quick we're seeing these times throughout the depth of the field, not just up at the top, but we're seeing faster and faster times as the weeks go.
Yes. And not just that, it's the way they're executed. It's not like people are stumbling over the line dying either. It's like they get in there. I mean, Elliot Simmons was casually cruising back right after he was done.
The Alain Folie will be our next finisher, 11th place in the heat. Judge's hand up for Richard Smith, brother of Jason Smith. And took a look around real quick before. Andre Houdet will be the next finisher in lane number 20, all the way on the top of the top lane.
And so Smith right here doing a good job, and you see Big Brother on the left side of your screen there, giving him a couple of pointers. I think he knows just 1 foot ahead of the other, keep on going for goal. I asked him yesterday if he thought he was going to beat his brother. He was hesitant. And that's Ryan Divanage right there, finishing up a little bit ahead of lane number 3, Gianluca Stitzer.
After the conversation yesterday that we heard between Jason and Richard Smith, I'm thinking it probably wasn't so much encouragement as much as trash talk between the two of them. And Richard Smith will be our next finisher as he makes his way across. In the 17th place in this heat. Next finisher should be in lane number 4, which will be Nicola Petrucci. And he will be our next finisher just past the 42-minute mark. And that leaves 2. As in lane number 8, we'll have Atez Boran. And in lane 15, Daniel Sherbakov.
And these aren't bad times at all. Atez Boran and Sherbakov.
Boran struggling heavily. It looked like he needed to get a little bit going there. Got the rhythm back now.
And Daniel Sherbakov right here is on the last stretch. Finishing off, just increase the pace just a little bit.
And it will be Sherbakov. That will be our next finisher. 19th place, right about 43 minutes now. I don't recall any times that were more than 43 minutes in heat number 1. I might be off on that as we've got one athlete remaining on the floor.
There he is, Atez Boran. He is a fighter. We've seen him at regionals before. He always comes to deliver, just never gives up, doesn't matter where he finds himself. Same thing right now.
Making his 5th regional appearance in consecutive years, actually won event number 1 in 2016.
I think he probably knew coming into this that this wasn't going to be the favorite event. Gymnastically very sound, good with the barbell. Didn't enjoy this quite as much.
As Alan Fallu made his way over there, it almost looked like he had that look of like, yeah, okay, you can cheer me on, it's cool. Give him that little nod of like, yeah, it's fine.
Atez knows what it is he has to do, and he's just, I think he just wants to see the end of this so he can get to the barbells at Linda a little bit later.
The 4-time fittest man in Turkey. 2015, 2016, 17, and this year again winning that title.
His eyes sure caught something right there. Eyes forward, young man, go for it.
Not in danger of the time cap, but I believe, thinking back to the times in heat number 1, this will probably be rounding out the field of 40. So we're at the 45-minute mark.
I mean, he's doing everything right. It's just it wasn't there. It was the run. Now it's all about making sure he just wants to finish it. Minimal damage. There's no sprint to be had. That's the spirit right there.
And triple threes is over for Atez Boran. And you can see the toll of this event as he makes his way across the floor, finishing the field 45 minutes and 42 seconds. To round it out, and about 10 minutes ago at 36:15, it was the ultra impressive performance, a near event record performance from Elliot Simmons.
Elliot Simmons put on a clinic. He got in the rower, took it easy, made sure that he wasn't overexerting himself. And then after that, once he got to the double unders, found his stride, arms forward, and in that crowded space, still made his way fairly fast to the assault runner. Got off to a blistering pace and just held on to that throughout the entire way, looking certain all the way. He knew exactly what he had.
Very impressive, and Elliot Simmons is with Nikki Brazier.
We're just watching you sprint to the finish line as though you were never even on the runner to begin with. How did it feel once you got a couple miles in and you knew that you really had to open it up to get that lead going?
Yeah, I mean, I practiced the event in training. I knew what pace, and I was just going to go off feel. So it's a great event. It's a lot easier doing it here than it is in a gym with no one around. So that was nice. It made me feel a bit more comfortable, so that was good.
You had a good lead up to regionals and an exciting couple weeks for you. You got engaged recently, and your fiance is going to be competing here on the floor as well. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, thanks for that. No, well, everyone knows how much I love Jay, so there you go.
Well, exciting to see you guys both here on the floor together. Great job. Way to start off the weekend.
Thank you.